Sports, where we review all the best sports clips from around the world. If this is your first time checking out a video, please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. We're watching a clip with First Things First, talking about the NBA tiers. Nick's doing his tiers, specifically with NBA basketball, as he usually does with football. And so I'm really curious to see how he does this. I've never done a clip where he's done the NBA in this format. Just yesterday we did do ranking the players, and so I'm curious to see how this unfolds specifically with basketball, because basketball is a lot trickier than, say, doing this with football. Football makes a lot more sense. It's just everyone's playing just one game a week. There's only so many games to evaluate. A lot of the teams are playing each other. It's just the comparisons make a lot more sense to me, at least. Basketball, I think, is a lot trickier than that, because the season is so long, and a lot of times you're playing teams with various lineups at various stages, right? What you did, kind of similar in football, but like what you did in, the second week of the season is just so massively different than what you're doing, say, now in the NBA season. So I'm really curious to see how this unfolds, and then we can break it down from there.
Listen, we're deep into the season, so these teams are already off the tiers. There's the relegation tier, the sub-relegation tier, and the contraction tier, which is, I know the NBA is talking about adding teams. Maybe don't add teams. Maybe just get rid of those two and put them in Vegas and Seattle. But that leaves 18 teams still on the tiers. Let's get right to it. Bottom of the tiers, get out of the play-in. Just making the actual playoffs would be a great accomplishment. The actual 8-team playoffs for any of these teams. I know people are like, hey, Orlando's 5th in the standings. They are, but they're a half game out of being in the play-in. For any of these teams, just making the real tournament would be a good accomplishment. None of them are going to win a round come the actual tournament. All right, tough out.
Golden State can.
These are 4 tough teams that all should be proud of how they've played this season, and all at various times maybe have been like the Cavs had, I think, a 17-2 stretch. The Knicks, before the injuries hit them, were looking really good. The Pelicans, after kind of being under the radar to start the year, they found themselves, right in around the 4-5 line throughout most of the season. And the Kings, sneaky right around where they were last year, but we know what their ceiling is. All these teams have a round 2 ceiling. All these teams can win a round, but I don't think any of them can make the conference finals, so that is where they're at. Who's getting tricked? Sexy teams, big names. They all have a big 3, and maybe somebody on this show is going to pick one of these teams to make the NBA Finals. I know they're going to be, at least so, there will be a lot of people who decide, it's not going to be Denver. Who's it going to be? Well, the data says the Timberwolves are legit, as long as the data doesn't include every playoff series Rudy Gobert's ever played in. Look at all the talent you have in Los Angeles or in Phoenix. People are going to be tricked by these teams. They're fun teams. They're interesting teams. They can't make the NBA Finals. Terrifying for a series or two. LeBron, Luka, AD, Kyrie. Both of these teams for a week, for 2 weeks, for a month even, can look awesome. And you can feel like, man, the best player on the court. They might have the best duo on the court. Can either of these teams win 3 straight series, let alone...
I just got to pause real fast. Already, this is awful. His football tiers aren't terrible for the most part. This is already awful.
4 straight series. The Lakers with their rotations and the lack of defense at times, and the coaching, the Mavs with just the outright allergy to defense lately. The answer is probably not, but you don't want to see them across from you in the bracket at any point. Next, lurking with questions. For Philly, they're lurking because of how good they looked when Embiid was there, how great Embiid was playing. But the questions are Embiid's health and Embiid's playoff history.
He will be
For
back.
OKC, it is just so much youth. And by the way, I've been saying that the Thunder, that SGA's never made the playoffs. That's obviously not true. They made the playoffs when they had Chris Paul. Since they have been the young Thunder core, they haven't played in the postseason. But with Chet and Jalen Williams and SGA, they on paper look really good. The questions are lack of experience. Oddly, for the Sixers, the question is all the experience being bad. Wildly undervalued. Milwaukee and Miami for obvious reasons. Milwaukee did what everybody asked them to do. Keep Giannis being awesome, add a closer. They've done that, and maybe Maybe they upgraded at coach. I don't know. The Doc stuff is confusing, but there were real questions with Budenholzer. And Miami is just Miami, which around this time every year starts turning it around and is terrifying in the playoffs. And right now, nobody believes neither one of them. So this is wildly undervalued. Wild's juggernaut, Denver. I think they're really good. Wilds thinks they're inevitable. I think Joker's one of the 2 best players in the league. Wilds and many others think he is head and shoulders the best player in the league. They are right now the clear-cut favorite to win the West. For a lot of people, they're the favorite to win the championship. And then, wild expectations, and that is the Boston Celtics. They are right now a minus money favorite, Brew, against the field in the Eastern Conference. They are a huge favorite, just 2-1, to win the entire thing. Wow. They have the 4th best point differential in the history of the NBA, and they are the first team ever to win 3 games by 50-plus points. They're at the top of the first edition of the 2024 NBA.
Okay. Let's see what Brew has to say.
Yeah, that was very good. I love the names. The names are good, and even if I disagree with where some of the teams are ranked,
Can I
the
tell you
names
something?
are good. Yeah.
The one person that's on both committees is Harold, our English major. Because you don't have to know the sports to be able to be a wordsmith. So, he's on both. But go ahead.
And I got a secret for you.
Yeah,
I came up with the tough out.
No, okay.
I was on the phone last night at the midnight oil hour.
Go ahead.
All right, but anyway, I'm going to go with OKC, and you said a lot of it.
Oh, okay.
I love everything about them. Everything. Except the youth and the
you want to move them down? I thought you were going to say move them up.
I think they're a little too high. Look, I said yesterday, and you agree with me, I believe, I would take the Lakers over them in a playoff series.
No.
I probably,
Oh my
Phoenix, if they're healthy, and certainly Book and KD, and the Clippers. I think I would take all of them over
all
OKC.
the old teams.
Okay. So that's what he's saying. He wants to bring OKC all the way down and elevate those teams. Okay. This is the way I look at it. I in no way think Golden State is the team to beat this year and putting them all the way up there. And obviously, some of these series can't make sense because they would have to meet in the final. But we're throwing that out the door. But Golden State, if they were playing a series, I got Golden State against the Knicks. I got Golden State against the Cavs. The Pelicans are a question mark because they're just like a bigger team in general. And the Kings, they already proven that they were able to beat the Kings last year. Although I'm a big proponent of not comparing last year to this year, but they have shown it's more about, what have the Kings shown this year of being able to take a step forward as to what they were last year. Now I still, trust, because the playoffs more than anything, and even more so probably than any other sport that I can honestly think of, more so than football, the experience matters so much because it's such an ebb and flow game. Football, there's constant breaks, obviously. You're relying on the other coaches. If anything, I think the playoff experience for the coaches on a lot of times matter more for the players outside of some like nerves issues. But you don't necessarily need to know how to do specific things to win a football game in the playoffs. Play calling and understanding and things getting tighter and understanding the flow of the game in the playoffs are different for the NFL. But with basketball, it's very specific. Again, I always say this, it's poetry in motion. It's a very sport that's very alive, and there's very, very, very specific circumstances that you don't get a second to think about, right? In football, you're down by 3, and it's the playoffs. Down by 3 is down by 3, okay? But in basketball, if you're down by 2 and there's a minute 12 to go, it's got such greater potential for everything just to get like flustered and insane and you don't know what to do. And so having that experience matters so much. Being down by 18, going into the fourth quarter when you're the Golden State Warriors and deeply understanding we're still good, we still got this, is invaluable. And that is what puts, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and even LeBron James in that. And they're the only players, and Kevin Durant, they're the only players really out of this whole list, because they're the oldest and the most accomplished, that truly have that level of experience that matters so much in the NBA. So much. It's just, and it's not to say that it doesn't matter in football, but I personally, as of right now, the way I'm viewing it, I think it ends up mattering a little bit more outside of maybe for a quarterback play. But with that said, so that's why I think you just have to elevate the Golden State Warriors. And I would put them then on par with the Lakers in that regard. I think the Clippers are an interesting team. I think they're really good, but their health is just such a question mark. And if you want to talk about the history of teams, like of individual players, look no further than James Harden. I mean, his game just withers away in the playoffs. Absolutely. And I think you got to elevate the Timberwolves because they have a great balance between young and older, more mature. And their older, more mature players aren't like hanging on by a thread where it's like, okay, dude, this guy can't keep going. Like KD is hanging on by a thread. I did a whole video about that. I love KD, one of my favorite players of all time. He's hanging on by a thread. You can't rely on him game after game after game. His body just can't recover. We see that. We saw that in the playoffs previously with LeBron, with Steph, KD. It's just the way it goes. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality. OKC is incredible. Absolutely incredible. I would absolutely positively put them ahead of the Bucks and the Miami Heat. That's like disrespectful. I know they're young, and it's what I said earlier. You do have to learn how to win in the playoffs and in basketball and in these high intense crunch time situations. You do have to learn. But it's not to say that OKC can't, because they have some real dogs on that team and some real leaders, and they're composed and they're a mature young team. There is a difference. It's very reminiscent of the Golden State Warriors. Granted, they don't have someone like a Steph Curry right now, but you know, when the Warriors took off in the playoffs, they pretty much hit the ground running because they were mature, they were well coached, and they were doing things that the NBA had never seen. And in a way, in its own individual way, OKC, you know, gives me some of those vibes. So to say that they're just that we just have to like pull them down too much because of their youth, I don't necessarily agree with that. And I think, you know, he's saying that the Bucks are wildly undervalued. I think they're wildly overvalued. Giannis, again, I also love Giannis. I really, really do. I was cheering for him. I wanted to see him win a championship. Like I'm rooting for him. I'm not against him in any stretch of the imagination. But he's not that dog. He's a different type of player. It's not to say that he doesn't bring the intensity. It's not to say that he doesn't bring the passion. It's not to say that he can't put up a 50-point game, because he obviously can. It's not to say that he doesn't step up when he needs to. But it is different. It's almost like pretend in a lot of ways. LeBron James, it feels authentic. Steph Curry, authentic. KD, authentic. There seems to be like make-believe. The way I look at it, and this is going to be a funny analogy, and I hope you can follow it, is let's take out like Superman or Batman or, you know, Iron Man, Captain America. It's often seen that they are regular people, right? And when they put on the costume, that's their alter ego, right? But the reality is that those superheroes, their actual true core identity is actually the superhero. They're pretending, you know, Batman is pretending to be Bruce Wayne. Superman is pretending to be Clark Kent. Iron Man is pretending to just not be Iron Man. Captain America is pretending to be, can't think of what his real name is right now. They're pretending at the core of who they are, especially depending on the superhero we're talking about, like Captain America. Like he's actually physically stronger and bigger and stronger and faster than everyone. That to me is reversed with Giannis. You know, LeBron to his core is that guy. Steph Curry to the core is that guy. Giannis is like, okay, it's time for me to be that guy, rather than I just am that guy. There's a difference. And you see that in the statement, and I really hold his feet to the fire on that when he said, this is Dame's team. You just would never hear someone like a LeBron ever make a statement like that. Okay? And you just, it just gives me red flags, honestly. It really, really does. And maybe I hang on that too much, but it just does. And I think, of course, you know, the Denver Nuggets are amazing. I think that they should be at the top. And same thing with the Celtics. I think those two teams are definitely at the top. I don't know if one has to be above the other necessarily, because again, one of the big benefits, I think the Celtics have a better roster than the Nuggets, but the Nuggets have the best player, which is Jokic, as well as they have the experience, so they know truly how to win. But I would say that the Celtics have enough playoff experience where they do know how to win. Just because they haven't won doesn't mean they don't know how to win, right? Peyton Manning knew how to win football games before he won a Super Bowl. When he won the Super Bowl, it wasn't like, oh, I finally learned how to win a Super Bowl. No, he just was finally in the right position at the right time to be able to win the Super Bowl. So I do feel as though the Celtics have gone through their growing pains. And if they don't win, it's not because they don't know how to win, which I think there is a difference. If OKC doesn't win, you could say, well, they just don't know how to win yet. They don't know how to not unravel when they're down by 15 going into the fourth quarter. Or they do not know how to control the flow of the game when you're up by 3 with a minute 30. You know, you took a bad shot, then the other team, went for a quick layup, and then you fouled, and now you're down. Now you're down by 2, right? And that's what happens to these young teams. They just like unravel so quickly, and that's what makes a team like the Golden State Warriors so special. It's like, give me the ball, and that's what Kevin Durant can do with the Phoenix Suns. It's like, give me the ball. I got this. I can literally slow down everything around us. Like, I got this. So when you have those true vets on teams, you can't ever really count them out. But I think this list, I also would put the Sixers, and I understand why the Sixers are that low, because you don't know what's going on with Joel Embiid. Based on my own experience with getting not 1, not 2, but 3 meniscus surgeries, seeing what Joel Embiid is doing right now and when the playoffs are going to be, I think he's going to be pretty much full strength into the playoffs. I really, really do. It's just going to be pain tolerance, which I think will be fine. There's not going to be any risk of injury, so we'll have some soreness. So you might see some things where he has a great game and you're able to really lean on him, and then maybe the next game is not, he might not recover as much or just have a lot more pain, and I don't know how he goes about then managing that, but it's typically not so bad where you're going to be taking, opiates or anything of that nature. Could be an injection. It really all depends. But I think he will be back for the playoffs, and if he does, he's going to be well rested and ready to go, and he will be able to take on anyone in the East. Anyone on the East, if he's full strength, I got my money on him over the Miami Heat, over the Milwaukee Bucks, over the Cavaliers, the Knicks. No ifs, ands, or buts. So you would have to put the Sixers up there. The Celtics, it's going to be a little bit different. They are they're a quick team. Okay, so that's when you can potentially take advantage of, say, a Joel Embiid, especially who's going to be, maybe not fully 100% or will be 100% in game 1, but then maybe like 85% in game 2. It'll be a somewhat different of an ebb and flow. So I'd have to see how the Sixers kind of work in Embiid and what his level of health before I say, oh yeah, they can absolutely run, because I do think the Celtics are elite. I really do. And I'm not going to just, pick the Sixers just for the sake of doing that. But I think the Sixers are criminally, you want to talk about wildly undervalued, they're criminally undervalued. But I think the playoffs are shaping up to be really exciting. And a big part of me, honestly, really actually kind of hopes that the Lakers just get knocked off. And the Golden State Warriors even get knocked off. It's kind of old news, honestly. And I love those players. I loved watching them. I do want to see Steph win another championship, but at the same time, I want to watch really good, high quality, elite play. And I don't know if that's what you're necessarily going to be getting out of some of these other teams. And I'm excited to see some new guys battle. I want to see Jokic versus Embiid in the finals. I want to see Jokic versus, Giannis in the finals. I want to see Boston go up against Embiid, in an Eastern Conference championship going back and forth. I want to see OKC go up against, the Nuggets. Like that, I want to see it. I'm ready for new blood. I'm ready for new rivalries, new teams, new everything. So, as exciting as it would be to watch like Kevin Durant go on another run, who again, I absolutely love. Same thing with Steph and LeBron. Would love to see those guys, continue to win and continue to be great. I am ready to watch new, younger guys with fresh legs to take over. And the NBA needs it. And the NBA needs an exciting final. They can't have these 5-game series where it was never really that competitive. And that's the problem. Maybe Golden State Warriors or LeBron James are able to eke out a win. This is what I'm really trying to say. They can win out a series, but then the next series is just not going to be that competitive, because he even says it, terrifying for a series or two. And that's the problem, because maybe they could eke out that series win, but then the next series, it's like, oh my God, dude, they can't hang. And I don't want that. I want every series to be really exciting. The NBA needs multiple exciting game 7s on the edge of your seat. We need to see Jokic go up against Giannis in the finals. Jokic against Embiid, fully healthy. Let's go back and forth. Both fan bases yelling at each other. We need that. We need that excitement. We can't have, the Nuggets go up against the Celtics or go up against the Cavaliers, the Knicks, and win in 5 games in the championship. That's just nothing. That's just like, what the heck was that? We can't have that. So we need exciting. Cheer for exciting, intense matchups. But those are just my thoughts. Would absolutely love to hear yours. Where do you think Nick, do you think Nick's got it right with these rankings? Anywhere other teams that you would kind of put, and where would you move them? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So if you think what I'm saying is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, please let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is the most amazing thing, then also please let me know. Either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.